Elara Vance stood at the edge of the starport platform, her fingers gripping the strap of her small travel bag. The shuttle lights blinked softly in the dim evening sky of Terra Station, the central hub for human colonies spreading across the stars. Around her, other travelers hurried to their gates, voices echoing in the metal hall. But Elara felt a heavy quiet pressing on her heart. Her sister, Lyra, was supposed to be on this ship. Lyra had dreamt of a new life on Calderon 5, a frontier colony far beyond the Outer Rim. She had signed the papers months ago to become a mail-order bride to a rancher named Rhett Calder. But life had other plans. A sudden illness had struck Lyra, leaving her too weak to make the journey. And now, the choice had fallen to Elara. She took a deep breath, smoothing the plain dress she had packed. For her, she whispered to herself. Lyra had wanted this life badly, and Elara couldn't let her sister's dream die in the quiet room of their home. She would take her place. The shuttle's hatch opened with a hiss, and Elara stepped forward, her boots echoing on the metal floor. The cabin was small and cramped, filled with settlers clutching their belongings and staring out at the endless black of space. The hum of the engines vibrated beneath her feet, and she felt a small thrill of fear. Calderon 5 was not an easy world. It was rough, wild, and full of challenges that few people survived without grit. But somehow, this danger made her resolve stronger. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the occasional announcement from the pilot. Elara tried to focus on the sights outside the window, swirling nebulae, distant stars, and the tiny moons of the outer systems. Every sparkling light reminded her that humans had come far, that they could survive in places where life should have been impossible. Finally, the shuttle began its descent. The blue and green planet of Calderon 5 came into view, its wide plains stretching under a sun that seemed brighter than any she had ever seen. Massive, domed settlements dotted the horizon, but between them, the land was wild and untamed. Herds of gravbeasts roamed freely, their heavy hooves thundering across the plains. The air was thin, crisp, and smelled faintly of metal and earth. As the shuttle landed with a gentle shake, Elara's stomach twisted with nervous excitement. This was it. She was far from home, far from her sister's bedside, but ready to step into a life she had never imagined. The platform at the landing zone was crowded. Colonists and ranchers waited for arrivals, shouting greetings to one another. Elara scanned the crowd, looking for the man she was supposed to meet. She had seen only a single photograph of Rhett Calder, tall, rugged, with eyes that looked like they had seen too many winters and too many storms. But she braced herself. Appearances could be deceiving, especially on a frontier world. A figure broke from the crowd. He moved with careful precision, eyes scanning the new arrivals like a predator judging his land. He stopped when he saw her. For a moment, he said nothing, just looked. Elara's heart pounded in her chest. She tried to stand taller, to project confidence she didn't feel. "You're not Lyra," he finally said, his voice deep, steady, and unreadable. Elara swallowed. "No," she admitted softly. "I'm her sister. She couldn't come." Rhett's expression did not change. He continued to look her over, his gaze sharp and calculating. Around them, the noise of the landing zone faded, leaving only the quiet tension between two people who were strangers in a dangerous world. "I see," he said at last. "So you're stepping into her place. Brave or foolish. Time will tell." Elara's chest tightened. She had expected skepticism, but not such cold, careful assessment. Still, she did not falter. "I can learn," she said. "I can help. I'll do whatever is needed." Rhett's eyes flicked to the shuttle, then back to her. "Words are easy," he said. "Actions are harder." "Words are easy. Actions are harder." Before she could respond, a sudden commotion broke out near the landing fields. A low, guttural roar rolled across the plains, and a group of gravbeasts stampeded, scattering dust and small rocks in their wake. Elara instinctively stepped back, and Rhett's hand moved to her shoulder, steadying her. "That's the welcome you get here," he said, his tone almost amused. "The beasts are restless today." Ilara's heart leapt. The danger was real. The world she had come to was not tame or polite. She felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier on her shoulders. This wasn't just about stepping into her sister's life, it was about surviving on a planet that demanded courage, quick thinking, and adaptability. Rhett led her to a rugged vehicle parked nearby. A grav truck used to transport supplies across the wide ranches of Calderon 5. The cab was narrow and smelled of metal and oil, with controls she had never seen before. He gestured for her to sit beside him. "Sit tight," he said. "This isn't a city. Rules are different here." The ride to the ranch was bumpy and long. Dust rose behind the grav truck in waves, curling like smoke around the uneven terrain. Ilara stared out the window at the sprawling wilderness, trying to memorize every detail: the rocky cliffs, the winding rivers, the distant mountains that seemed impossibly tall. "You'll need to know this land," Rhett said, breaking her thoughts. "Every hill, every stream, every herd movement. Mistakes here cost more than embarrassment." "I understand," she replied. She did, even if her nerves trembled. She had spent her life in the comfort of Terra's cities. This was a challenge unlike anything she had imagined, but she refused to be afraid. By the time the truck reached the ranch, the sun was dipping low, painting the plains in gold and red. The ranch itself was a cluster of sturdy buildings, reinforced to withstand the storms and predators that roamed the area. Grav beasts grazed nearby, their massive forms casting long shadows. The sight was breathtaking and intimidating all at once. Rhett pulled the truck to a stop. He turned to her, eyes softening slightly for the first time. "You'll start tomorrow. There's a lot to learn, and I don't have the patience for mistakes, but we survive together, or we don't survive at all." Ilara nodded, determination blazing in her chest. "I'll do my best." He gave a small, approving nod and walked away to check on the livestock. Alone, Ilara took in the ranch, the animals, and the wide-open sky above her. She could hear the distant calls of creatures she had never seen, the wind rustling through tall grass, and the soft hum of machines keeping the ranch alive. That night, she lay in the small quarters provided for her, listening to the strange sounds of the planet. Fear still lingered, but so did excitement. She had come to Calderon 5 to stand in her sister's place. But she already sensed that this world had a way of changing people. And perhaps it would change her too. Tomorrow, she would face grav beasts, wild storms, and a man who might never truly trust her. But for the first time, Ilara felt the spark of something stronger than fear. She felt the fire of human courage, the unyielding desire to survive, and the hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find a place here that was hers. And somewhere, in the quiet of the plains, Rhett Calder watched the horizon, thinking that perhaps this sister's replacement wasn't a replacement at all. She was something new, and he wasn't sure yet whether that frightened him or made him curious. The sun rose over Calderon 5, spilling golden light across the wide plains. Ilara woke to the sound of grav beasts calling to one another, their low, deep bellows echoing across the ranch. The air was crisp, filled with a faint metallic tang that made her lungs feel alive. She swung her legs over the edge of the cot in the small quarters and took a deep breath. Today, she would begin her new life. Stepping outside, she saw Rhett Calder already at work. He moved with steady precision, checking the grav beasts and adjusting the electric fences that kept them from wandering too far. Even at a distance, he seemed carved out of the land itself, strong, focused. A man who belonged to the wild world he called home. Ilara approached cautiously. "Good morning," she said softly, not wanting to startle him. Rhett glanced up, his eyes sharp. "Morning. You ready to start?" "I think so," she said. Her hands felt small and unsure, but she tried to hold herself tall. "Think?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. "Here, think isn't enough. You'll learn quick, or you'll get eaten alive. Not literally. Usually." He gave a half-smile, but his eyes stayed serious. Elara nodded. "I'll do my best." He gestured for her to follow as he led her toward the main ranch area. "First lesson," he said, "observe. Watch the beasts, watch the land. Everything you do starts with paying attention." The grav beasts were massive creatures, each as tall as a small building, with thick hides and long curved horns. They moved in herds, communicating with rumbles and low calls. Elara could feel the power in their bodies even from a distance. As she watched, she realized she had underestimated this world. These animals weren't just livestock, they were forces of nature, and every movement mattered. Rhett handed her a datapad with notes and diagrams. "This is basic care," he said. "Feeding schedules, herd behavior, health checks. Study it. You'll need it." Elara spent the morning memorizing names, behaviors, and routines. She stumbled occasionally, confusing one beast for another, but Rhett's sharp eyes caught her mistakes immediately. "Slow down," he said. "Focus. Panic gets people killed out here." By midday, she was exhausted but exhilarated. For the first time in her life, she felt the kind of challenge that made every breath feel important. She realized she had never truly tested herself before. Her life on Terra had been safe, predictable, comfortable. Here, every decision mattered, and her survival was directly tied to her courage and awareness. Lunch was a simple meal of dried protein, hard bread, and water. Rhett ate silently, chewing thoughtfully. Elara tried to break the quiet. "Does it always feel like this?" she asked, nodding toward the open plains and the grazing beasts. "Some days are calm," he said. "Most are not. You'll learn to read the signs, the wind, the animals, the ground. Life here is honest. It doesn't hide its dangers." After lunch, Rhett decided it was time for her first test. He led her to the eastern pasture, where a small herd of grav beasts had become restless. Dust swirled around their hooves, and their low growls resonated across the field. "Today you'll guide them back to the safe pen," he said. "Watch. Then follow my lead." Elara's heart raced. The creatures were enormous, and she could feel the vibration of their steps in her chest. She followed Rhett as he moved calmly among the herd, using a combination of voice commands and gentle taps with a long staff. She tried to mimic him, speaking clearly, moving slowly, and keeping her distance. One young grav beast broke formation, charging toward a weak fence. Elara froze for a moment, panic bubbling in her chest. Then she remembered Rhett's words. "Observe, act carefully." She stepped forward, her voice firm, and guided the animal back into line. Her hands shook, but the beast obeyed. Rhett watched silently, then nodded. "Not bad," he said. "You have instincts. That's half the battle. The rest is practice." By evening, the herd was secure, and Elara felt a sense of pride she had never known. Rhett handed her a cloth to wipe the dust from her face. "You survived your first day," he said simply. "That counts for something." Elara smiled, though her muscles ached and her feet throbbed. She realized something important. She was not just surviving. She was learning. She was starting to belong. But life on Calderon 5 was never simple. As they returned to the ranch house, a sudden storm brewed on the horizon. Dark clouds rolled across the plains, and lightning flashed, illuminating the wild landscape. The wind picked up, bending the tall grass and shaking the fences. Rhett's eyes narrowed. "Storm's coming fast," he said. "We need to secure the equipment and bring the herd closer to shelter." Elara followed him, carrying heavy crates of supplies. The wind threatened to knock her off her feet, and the rain began to fall in sharp, cold sheets. She slipped in the mud once, but Rhett grabbed her arm just in time. "You'll get used to this," he shouted over the storm, "or you'll get left behind." By the time the grav beasts were safely corralled, night had fallen. The storm continued to rage, thunder shaking the ground beneath them. Inside the ranch house, Elara wrung out her wet clothes and warmed herself by a small heater. Rhett sat nearby, inspecting a mechanical control panel. "You handled the storm better than I expected," he said after a long silence. Alara felt a flush of pride. "I guess. I just kept thinking about Lyra," she admitted. "She wanted this life. I want to make sure I don't fail her." Rhett glanced at her, a flicker of respect in his eyes. "That's a good reason. But remember, this life isn't about anyone but you after tonight. You're on your own now. You survive, or you don't." The next few days were a blur of hard work and learning. Alara rose with the sun, tended the grav beasts, repaired broken fences, and learned to navigate the harsh landscape. Each task pushed her limits, but she began to discover something she had never realized before. Humans were built for challenges. The colonies survived because of people like her, curious, brave, and stubborn in the face of impossible odds. Rhett, too, began to notice changes. The quiet, determined woman he had met at the starport was becoming a capable rancher. She asked questions, noticed details he had overlooked, and even began predicting the herd's movements. For the first time in years, he felt that maybe he had found a partner who could match his world. Not just a bride, to live in it. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Alara stood on the porch of the ranch house, looking over the plains. The wind was warm now, carrying the scent of rain and earth. She realized she had survived storms, wild beasts, and unfamiliar challenges, and she had grown stronger for it. Rhett joined her silently, leaning on the railing. For a long moment, they watched the herd in the distance, shadows stretching across the plains. "You did well today," he said finally. "Better than I thought someone in your position could." Alara smiled, though she felt the ache of her muscles and the exhaustion of the week. "Thank you," she said softly. "I'm learning. Slowly, but I'm learning." Rhett looked at her closely, as if trying to read something he couldn't yet name. "You have fire," he said. "I didn't expect it. Most newcomers crumble. You don't." Alara's heart lifted. For the first time, she felt that she belonged here not because of her sister, not because she had stepped into someone else's life, but because she had proven herself. She had faced the wild, and it hadn't broken her. The stars began to twinkle above the plains, and the ranch was quiet, except for the soft calls of grav beasts and the distant rumble of the storm fading behind the mountains. Alara felt a strange sense of peace. She knew the days ahead would be harder, that the world would continue to challenge her, and that Rhett Calder remained a mystery she had yet to understand fully. But she also knew one thing with certainty. She could survive, she could thrive, and maybe, just maybe, she could find a place here that was hers on this wild, beautiful, and unforgiving world of Calderon 5. The next morning, Calderon 5 awoke under a sky washed with soft pink and gold. The storm from the previous evening had passed, leaving behind a clean, crisp scent that carried through the plains. Alara stretched, her body sore but strong, and stepped outside. The grav beasts grazed quietly, and the ranch, for the first time in days, seemed peaceful. Rhett Calder was already at work. He was checking a herd that had been unsettled by the storm, moving between the animals with the confidence of someone who had lived among them his whole life. Alara took a deep breath and followed him. Today, she would not just observe, she would actively participate in running the ranch. "Your first full day," Rhett said, glancing at her. "I'm going to see how much you've learned." Alara nodded. "I won't let you down." "Words again," he replied, half smiling. "Show me." The morning was filled with hard, steady work. Alara helped repair the fences that had been damaged in the storm, learned to carry heavy feed sacks without losing balance on the uneven ground, and guided smaller grav beasts to the feeding area. Each task was exhausting, but she was learning faster than she had expected. Rhett watched her closely, correcting small mistakes without scolding, and offering brief words of guidance. He was surprised by her resilience. Most newcomers to Calderon 5 would have faltered in the first week. Alara not only survived, she adapted, and she asked questions that showed she was thinking ahead. "You notice the younger beasts are skittish," Rhett said after a while, nodding at her observation. "Why?" Elara paused, looking at the herd. The storm unsettled them, and the older beasts are stressed, so the younger ones follow their lead. If we calm the herd, the younger ones will follow. Rhett's eyes narrowed, impressed. Not bad. You're starting to understand them. That's rare for someone who's been here for less than a week. The morning passed into afternoon. By now, Elara had sweat-soaked clothes, muddy boots, and aching muscles, but she felt alive in a way she never had on Terra. The work was hard, yes, but it was honest. Every action had a purpose, and the results were immediate. She could see the herd responding to her guidance, the fences holding firm, the ranch slowly regaining order after the storm. Lunch was a quiet affair in the small ranch kitchen. Rhett prepared a simple meal, and they ate in silence for a while. Elara watched him out of the corner of her eye. He had a presence that demanded respect not through words, but through the way he moved, the careful attention he gave to the land and animals. "You're improving faster than I expected," he said at last. Most newcomers would still be struggling to keep up. Elara smiled, tired but proud. "I want to learn. I want to help. This land, it needs people who care. Not just hands." Rhett raised an eyebrow. "Caring is not enough out here. But it's a start." The afternoon brought a new challenge. A sudden rumble shook the plains, followed by a warning call from the older beasts. Elara froze. "What is that?" she asked, fear lacing her voice. Rhett didn't answer immediately. He moved quickly, signaling her to follow. Together, they rushed toward the western pasture, where a young grav beast had broken free from the fence. Its horns glinted in the sunlight as it charged blindly, panicking after the storm. Elara's heart pounded. She remembered the lesson from the first day. Observe. Act carefully. She moved alongside Rhett, using the staff he had given her to guide the animal back toward safety. Her hands were steady, her voice calm, and gradually, the grav beast slowed and followed her direction. Rhett watched silently, then gave a sharp nod. "Good. That's real progress. Not many newcomers can handle that without panicking." By evening, the herd was safe again. Elara's muscles were sore, but a sense of pride filled her. She was beginning to understand the rhythm of the ranch, the subtle language of the animals, and the ways to survive and even thrive on Calderon 5. Over the next few days, Elara continued to build her life on the ranch. She learned to repair machinery, monitor the weather patterns, and even navigate the vast plains alone. Rhett allowed her small responsibilities, testing her abilities and watching for signs of weakness. Each day, she gained more confidence, and he began to trust her more. One afternoon, while checking the perimeter fences, Elara noticed something unusual. The ground near the northern ridge was cracked and shifting. Subtle tremors she could feel through the soles of her boots. She frowned. "Rhett," she called, motioning him over. He came quickly, his eyes scanning the ridge. "Tremors," he said. "Could be natural. Could be trouble. We'll keep an eye on it." Elara nodded, feeling a thrill of responsibility. The land itself was alive, and she had to learn to read its warnings. As the days passed, she also began to understand Rhett better. He was not just a rancher. He was a man shaped by this harsh world. His patience was measured. His words few but meaningful. He respected strength and intelligence, and he began to see those qualities in her. One evening, after a long day of work, they sat outside the ranch house, watching the sunset. The plains were bathed in orange and gold, shadows stretching long across the land. Elara felt a sense of peace, though she knew danger could strike at any moment. "You're learning fast," Rhett said quietly. "Faster than most. You have instincts. And courage. That's rare." Elara looked at him, smiling despite the exhaustion. "I have to. I want to survive here. And maybe more than survive." Rhett studied her, his eyes softening for a moment. "I didn't expect you to be capable." Most newcomers would crumble. You don't. That's impressive. Ilara felt a surge of pride, but also a small question stirring inside her. Could she belong here? On this wild, challenging planet, she had come to step into her sister's life, but now she realized she was forging her own path. The nights on Calderon 5 were quiet, except for the distant calls of grav beasts and the occasional gust of wind sweeping across the plains. Ilara lay awake in her small room, listening, thinking, learning. She was no longer just a visitor. She was part of this land, part of the ranch, part of the world she had once feared. One morning, as the sky turned pale blue with the first light, Ilara stood on a ridge, watching the herd move across the plains. Rhett joined her silently. Together, they observed the animals, noting subtle changes in behavior. You're seeing patterns, he said. Most people don't. You're starting to think like the land. Ilara smiled, feeling a deep satisfaction. She was not just surviving. She was adapting, learning, thriving. Calderon 5 was harsh, unyielding, and demanding. But she had begun to meet its challenges head-on. Thank you, she said softly, almost to herself, for letting me learn. Rhett's expression was unreadable, but he nodded. You earned it. Keep going. The land won't forgive mistakes, but it rewards those who pay attention. And so, Ilara continued. She rose with the sun, worked with the grav beasts, repaired fences, and navigated the vast, wild plains. Every day brought new challenges, new lessons, and a growing sense of pride. She was not the sister who had been intended for this life. She was Ilara, a human who could survive, thrive, and find her place on the edge of space. By the end of the week, Rhett no longer treated her as an outsider. She was part of the ranch, part of his world, and though danger still lingered in the wild plains and storms could strike without warning, Ilara had proven that she had the heart, courage, and intelligence to face whatever Calderon 5 could throw at her. The planet was harsh, but so were humans. And Ilara was learning the truth that had built colonies across the stars. Humans could adapt, survive, and rise no matter the world, no matter the odds. Days passed on Calderon 5, with a rhythm that was both exhausting and comforting. Ilara had grown stronger, more confident, and more certain of her place on the ranch. She woke with the sun, worked with the grav beasts, repaired fences, and followed Rhett's careful guidance. The harsh beauty of the plains had begun to feel like home, and she could see the subtle signs of life that indicated safety or danger. But Calderon 5 had a way of reminding its settlers that beauty could hide peril. It began one morning when the ground beneath the northern pasture trembled again. At first, it was subtle, just a faint vibration under Ilara's boots. But within minutes, the tremors intensified, spreading through the plains. The grav beasts stirred uneasily, their low calls growing louder as they stamped and pawed at the earth. Ilara's heart pounded. Rhett, she called. Something's wrong. He appeared at her side within moments, his eyes scanning the shifting ground. I've felt this before, he said, his voice tense. Not a normal tremor. Something beneath the soil is moving. The two of them ran toward the area, keeping the grav beasts calm while assessing the damage. Cracks had formed along the pasture, some wide enough to swallow a grav beast's hoof. The soil was rising and falling as though something massive moved beneath the surface. Ilara swallowed hard. What is it? She asked. Rhett shook his head. Could be a creature, or maybe the land itself reacting to storms and our work. Either way, it's dangerous. We need to keep everyone back until we understand it. The ranch hands were quickly mobilized, fences were reinforced, and the grav beasts were corralled into safer pastures. Ilara worked tirelessly alongside them, her small hands gripping tools she had learned to use in just days. Despite fear pressing against her chest, she focused, observing patterns in the ground, the vibrations, and the beasts' reactions. By afternoon, Rhett called the team together. This is serious, he said. The tremors are growing stronger. We might be dealing with something massive beneath the soil, a creature big enough to disrupt the entire ranch. Elara felt her stomach twist. She had faced storms, wild beasts, and exhaustion. But this was something different. The danger was invisible, unpredictable. She swallowed her fear and nodded. Then we have to find a way to protect the herd. Rhett studied her closely. You're calm, he said. Not many people stay calm when the land itself seems to rise against them. Elara took a deep breath. We have to think, not panic. If we observe carefully, we can predict its movement and keep the animals safe. Together, they monitored the trembling ground. Hours passed with the air tense, the grav beasts restless, and every moment demanding vigilance. Elara noticed subtle signs, small cracks widening, a deep rumble preceding each movement, and the grav beasts' patterns of agitation. I think I understand, she said finally. It moves in bursts. If we can guide the herd away during the quieter intervals, we can avoid casualties. Rhett looked at her, surprised. You might be right. That's clever. Let's do it. They began the careful process of moving the herd. The grav beasts were hesitant, but with Elara's calm guidance and Rhett's steady presence, they began to move. Each step was precise, timed to the rhythm of the tremors. Elara's heart raced with every shudder of the ground, but she didn't falter. Suddenly, the soil cracked wide near the center of the pasture, and a massive shadow shifted beneath the surface. The tremor sent dust and rocks into the air, and the grav beasts panicked, breaking formation. Elara shouted commands, her voice firm, and rushed to redirect the animals. Rhett moved beside her, both of them working in perfect coordination. Keep them calm, he shouted. Follow my lead. For hours, they guided the herd through the safest paths, the tremors growing stronger and more frequent. Elara realized that this creature or force beneath the soil was massive, unlike anything she had imagined, and yet, her fear was tempered by the same courage that had brought her here. Humans survived because they adapted. Humans survived because they refused to give up. By nightfall, the herd was secure in the upper pastures, the ground below slowly settling as if the creature was moving away. Elara collapsed onto the porch of the ranch house, sweat mixing with dirt on her face. Rhett joined her silently, exhaustion etched in his strong features. You did well today, he said quietly. Better than I expected anyone to do. Elara managed a weak smile. We did it together. The herd is safe. Rhett nodded, then glanced at the darkening horizon. We can't ignore this. Whatever is beneath the soil, it's alive, and it's huge. Tomorrow, we'll need a plan to deal with it before it gets bolder. Sleep was difficult that night. Elara lay awake, listening to the faint tremors still echoing through the plains. She thought about the challenges of Calderon 5. Storms, wild beasts, and now a hidden creature beneath the soil. Every obstacle tested her, but she realized she had grown stronger, braver, and more capable. The next morning, the two of them began preparations. Rhett organized equipment and tools, while Elara studied the patterns of the tremors and the movement of the grav beasts. She suggested a plan: to use the herd strategically to lead the creature away from the ranch, using its natural instincts to guide it into a containment ravine discovered during earlier exploration. Rhett studied her carefully. You're thinking fast. That's smart. I didn't expect that from someone new. Elara shrugged, feeling a mix of pride and fear. I don't want anyone hurt. We have to try. Together, they executed the plan. The herd was guided carefully, their movements calculated to draw the creature without provoking it. Elara stayed close to the animals, calming them with quiet words and steady hands. Rhett monitored the terrain, signaling her when the ground trembled more strongly. The creature revealed itself slowly, a massive shadow moving just below the surface. The tremors grew violent, and the air vibrated with its power. Elara's heart pounded, but she refused to give in to fear. She focused on the task, her mind calculating each step. With precision and courage, they led the herd toward the containment ravine. The creature followed, drawn by the movement of the animals. Dust, rocks, and soil shifted violently. But Ilara and Rhett stayed calm, adjusting the herd's direction as needed. Finally, with a massive heave of earth, the creature entered the ravine. The ground shook one last time, then settled. Silence fell over the plains, broken only by the soft calls of the grav beasts. Ilara sank to the ground, exhausted but relieved. Rhett came to her side, placing a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure anyone could pull that off." Ilara smiled weakly. "We did it together." For the first time, she realized something profound. Calderon 5 was harsh, unforgiving, and full of dangers that humans had never faced before. But humans survived because they were adaptable, clever, and brave. And in that moment, she felt the truth of what she had always known. Humans could thrive, even in the most impossible conditions. That night, under a sky filled with stars, Ilara and Rhett stood together on the porch, watching the herd move quietly in the upper pastures. The ranch was safe for now, but the experience had changed both of them. Rhett looked at Ilara with a new respect. "I didn't expect you to handle that. Not just the danger, but the planning, the calm. You're stronger than I thought." Ilara felt a warmth in her chest. She had come to Calderon 5 to step into her sister's place, but now she knew she had created her own life here. A life of courage, growth, and survival. The planet still held challenges, still tested the limits of every person who lived here, but Ilara had proven that she could meet them and even thrive, and in doing so, she had earned the respect of a man who had once doubted her, a man who now saw her as more than a replacement. Humans were survivors, humans were brave. And on Calderon 5, Ilara was learning exactly what that meant. The morning sun rose over Calderon 5, casting long shadows across the vast plains. After the previous day's crisis, the ranch had been quiet, almost peaceful. Yet beneath the calm, the land still held secrets and challenges, reminding every settler that life on this wild planet was never truly easy. Ilara Vance stepped onto the porch of the ranch house, stretching her stiff muscles from the long night of planning and recovery. The grav beasts grazed in the upper pastures, their calm demeanor a testament to the success of the containment plan. Despite exhaustion, a sense of pride filled her. She had survived storms, tamed the herd, and even faced the massive, hidden threat beneath the soil. Rhett Calder joined her silently, his gaze sweeping across the plains. For a long moment, neither spoke. They had both faced danger together, relied on each other, and seen strength in ways that words could not fully capture. "You handled everything," Rhett said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "I thought it would take weeks, maybe months, for someone to understand the land like you do. But you just adapted." Ilara smiled faintly. "I had to. I wanted to make sure no one was hurt, that the ranch survived. That's what matters." Rhett studied her, his expression thoughtful. "It's not just that. You didn't just survive. You changed how I see this place, how I see what's possible. You're different." Ilara's heart skipped a beat. She had come to Calderon 5 to step into her sister's life, to fulfill a role she had never expected for herself. Yet now, she realized she was no longer living in someone else's shadow. She had created her own place, earned her own respect, and proved herself through courage, intelligence, and determination. The day passed with routine work. Fences were checked, grav beasts fed, and equipment repaired. Yet an undercurrent of anticipation hummed in the air. The ranchers of Calderon 5, who had heard of the tremors and the near crisis, were beginning to take notice. Ilara's calm guidance and the clever use of the herd had saved the ranch from potential disaster. Word would spread that this newcomer was not just capable, she was extraordinary. As evening fell, Rhett called her to the ridge overlooking the pasture. The sun painted the plains with gold and red, the shadows of the grav beasts stretching across the land. Ilara's eyes swept over the familiar scene, feeling both awe and a deep sense of belonging. "You've proven yourself," Rhett said quietly. "Not just to me, but to this ranch, to this land, and to the people who rely on it. You're no longer just someone stepping into your sister's place. You're part of this world now." Ilara felt a warmth in her chest she had never known. Pride. Yes, but also something deeper. Connection. Acceptance. She had arrived as a substitute, but she was leaving her mark as herself. Rhett continued, his voice steady but sincere. "I have to be honest. When I saw you at the starport, I didn't know what to think. You weren't my bride. You weren't supposed to be here. And yet, from the moment you stepped onto this ranch, you've proven that you belong. More than anyone I've known." Ilara's cheeks flushed. I wanted to help. I never expected this." He smiled, a rare softness in his rugged features. "You didn't just help. You led. You saved lives. You faced dangers most people wouldn't dare face. You've earned your place here. And I've earned the truth that choosing you was the right choice." Her heart swelled. It wasn't the words she had imagined, nor the recognition she had sought. It was something better, a genuine acknowledgement of her courage, her ingenuity, and her heart. Calderon 5 was harsh, unforgiving, and full of tests, but she had met every one of them, and in doing so, she had earned respect not just from Rhett, but from the land itself. As they stood together, the stars beginning to appear in the darkening sky, a sense of calm settled over Ilara. The wild plains had tested her, pushed her to her limits. And yet, she had thrived. She thought of her sister, who had dreamed of a better life here, and felt that she had honored that dream, not by replacing her, but by becoming herself. The next day, settlers from nearby ranches arrived to inspect the northern pasture. They had heard of the massive tremors and the clever way the herd had been guided. Ilara observed quietly as Rhett explained her role, watching the respect grow in the eyes of the other ranchers. They had seen countless newcomers arrive, timid and unsure, yet she had commanded the land, the animals, and the situation with calm intelligence. "You did well," one of the settlers said, shaking her hand. "I don't know many people who could have handled that." Ilara smiled. "We all have to do our part. The land is harsh, but humans are stronger than it seems." By evening, the ranch was quiet again. The grav beasts rested peacefully, and the horizon glowed with the last light of the day. Ilara and Rhett sat together on the porch, sharing a rare moment of silence. "You know," Rhett said thoughtfully, "I didn't just choose you because you stepped in for your sister. I chose you because of who you are. Brave, smart, capable. You belong here not because of obligation, but because you've earned it." Ilara felt tears welling up, not of sadness but of joy. "Thank you," she whispered. "I came here to protect my sister's dream. I never thought I'd find my own." He nodded, his eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. "You found it. And I'm glad you did." The weeks that followed were filled with quiet growth and partnership. Ilara continued to learn, taking on more responsibilities each day. She repaired equipment, guided the grav beasts, and even began teaching younger settlers the lessons she had learned. Her presence transformed the ranch. It was no longer just a place of survival, it was a place of ingenuity, courage, and collaboration. Rhett watched her closely, seeing in her the qualities that had built the colonies: resilience, adaptability, and unyielding courage. He realized that he had not just found a partner for life, he had found someone who could truly understand and share in the challenges of Calderon 5. One evening, as the sun set behind the distant mountains, Rhett approached Ilara with a serious expression. She looked up from her work, curious. "I've made my choice," he said simply. Ilara's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean?" He smiled, the warmth in his eyes unmistakable. "I mean that I choose you. Not because of duty, not because of circumstance, but because I see who you are. You've proven yourself in every way that matters. I want you here with me, On this ranch, on this world, for life. Ilara's breath caught. She had faced storms, wild beasts, tremors, and unimaginable challenges. And now, she faced a choice of the heart. And for the first time, she realized that she had never truly been alone on Calderon 5. Humans survived because they worked together, because they trusted, because they loved. I choose you too, she said finally, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Not for anyone else, not for my sister, but for us. Together. Rhett reached for her hand, and for the first time, the ranch felt complete. The grav beasts grazed peacefully in the distance. The plains stretched endlessly under the evening sky, and the stars began to twinkle above. Calderon 5 had tested them, challenged them, and yet here they were stronger, wiser, and united. The settlers of Calderon 5 would speak of this day for years to come. Not just because of the hidden threat beneath the soil, nor because of the clever guidance of the herd. They would remember the courage, the intelligence, and the unyielding spirit of a human who had arrived as a replacement and became a hero. Ilara had stepped into her sister's life, but she had made it her own. She had faced danger, adapted, and grown. And in the process, she had earned the respect, trust, and heart of the man she worked beside and the world she now called home. As night fell over the plains, the wind carrying the faint scent of rain and earth, Ilara stood beside Rhett on the porch. She looked out over the ranch, the grav beasts, and the wild, untamed horizon beyond. A sense of peace settled over her. Calderon 5 was harsh, but humans were stronger. Humans survived, humans thrived, and in that truth, Ilara found her place.